Arabs and Muslims and so forth. And so it's important that we understand that everything that happens is for a reason. It is for a reason. And so it is very important that we understand where we are, where we're going, and what we need to do to maintain ourselves. Somebody might ask the question, well, why is it that we need to know these things? And what can we do to safeguard ourselves? That's a great question, and that's important to understand. Well, in order to understand what we need to do as a people, we need to know what's going to happen and what's coming at us. You know, that's the only effective way to truly prepare, is knowing what can take place and what's going to take place. So we want to continue to read this. So I'm going to read this about Ayatollah Khomeini, thank you, Khomeini of Iran expressed one of his purposes was to eradicate Yasharol, or the Yasharolites. Osama bin Laden repeated these purposes in 1998. Now, many may not even recognize and may not have been around or alive during 1998. But he urged jihad against Americans and Ibram. He ruled that it is obligatory for all Muslims to kill the infidels in Muslim lands and to drive them out. He considered them as those plundering Muslim resources, that is oil, gas, and minerals. So you got to understand, y'all, this is why a lot of things are taking place over in other countries or other, I won't say Middle East, but over in the East where it is predominantly Muslim. And people are being forced to leave, and people are being, their lives are being at stake. And so it's important that we understand, especially once again in these end times. He has stated to kill the Americans and their allies, that is the British, and cited this, this is in accordance with the words of Almighty, and fight the pagans all together as they fight you all together, and fight them until there is no more turmoil or oppression, and these prevails justice, and there prevails, justice and faith in God. And we know they're talking about Allah. They're not talking about Abba Yahuah. The purposes are simply to free Palestine and get rid of all infidels. These include all Ibram and Christians, including pagans who do not believe in Allah as their God. Now I want to stop right here, because many times when we look into the Christian arena, many times people believe that their purpose as Christians is just as greater or as equal as ours that are in truth. There is not but one truth. Christianity is not it. I read a post where one brother was encouraging another brother, and he was saying, well, that is, and the punchline to this, he was giving words of encouragement, quote unquote. He said, well, you have to do what quote unquote, what God is leading you to do. Now, the problem comes in is that when you hear someone says, well, that's your assignment. In other words, that's not what I'm supposed to do, because that's not what I'm being led to do. You have to understand there is not but one way, and that way is Abba Yahuah's Torah truth. Because we have been so blindsided, and we have and taught wrong, as the song says, because we have been taught so wrong. When these things come to us, especially truth, and it comes in a package that has been contaminated, the first thing that's done is rejected. Though the package itself may be a little damaged, the information or that what is in the package is not damaged at all. But many times, because Christianity offers a smooth way, it's a better way. And people say, but that's not it. We don't sugarcoat the word, but you don't give the word in its totality. You don't give it in the truth, because if it was so, then you would teach about the Sabbath rest. But because we have been taught to believe that this is the law and we're no longer under the law, but they're under grace, as elders say, sloppy, what is it? Sloppy goppy grace?
Sloppy goppy and greasy grace.
Sloppy goppy and greasy grace. That's what it is. And that, there is no repercussion for the things, but it's in the writings, but yet we negate it. If you buy a refrigerator, if you buy a microwave oven, all the instructions in there pertain to that microwave oven, right? So we can't take the writings and say, well, that part does not pertain to us, because that's not valid. This is where, once again, the eyes of many of our people are blinded and their ears are deaf to what, the Ruach is saying unto the congregation. And so it is very important that we understand. When I say very important, it is very important that we understand where we are and what we need to do to maintain and to secure ourselves during these final hours. Very important. Now, once again, it's important that we understand their goal and their motive is that everybody that does not believe in Allah are infidels. Now, there you have to understand being an infidel and being an enemy is kind of two different things. And I'm going to show you what I mean by that. All right. Now, once again, and I want to say this, when you begin to truly understand when we talk about the Christian arena, it is not to give them credence and it is not to validate them in their walk. It is not to validate them and give them, once again, credence and say, well, Christians are just, they're equal as us. No, they're not. The reason why you have to understand that I believe personally that Muslims are going to take out Christians is because they don't recognize who they are. And they really don't realize that Christianity for us as a people was never meant to free us, but to keep us in bondage. Right. And always keep us in a place to where we would never recognize truth. Now, I could go on and on about certain things, but I'm not. But I do want to state this once again. It is imperative and important that you open your heart up and give the Torah access to your mind. Because until you give it access to your mind, you will never be able to process it. And I'm talking about the truth, not a revamped, a reconditioned, or restructured Torah. I'm talking about the naked truth of the Torah. In the Torah, in Abba Yahuah's multi-dimensional system, he teaches us his ahab for us through his son, Yahushua Mashiach. He teaches us how much he ahabs us. Excuse me. He teaches us his ahab, and he shows us what he wants of us and what he wants to give to us. Are y'all following me? That's important for us to understand. Now, and I want to say this again to reiterate it. The reason that they will be in line to also lose their lives is because you must understand they recognize who the true people are. The true people just have not recognized who they are. So it's like we're not going to give them a pass because they are the people. And just because they are in another way of life or in religion doesn't mean that they're going to get a pass to get out and go free. No, they're going to suffer as well. So you must understand when you hear me say the Ibram and the Christians, you must understand it is talking about those who have refused and still deny the truth and deny who and what they're supposed to be serving and the way they're supposed to be living. Okay, that's important. All right, now I want to read this to you. In a sermon of all things, Sheikh Ibram Mahdi issued a warning over Palestinian television on June 8th, 2001. Y'all, these things can be found because it is public records. So it's nothing that's being made up. This is truth. And then you got to understand too, get your eyes off of the people that are over there in Yasharon. Those are the or Jerusalem. Those are the Ashkenazi. These are not the real people. They are people that are there because we are out of place. And yes, they're going to fight them too because they realize you ain't the true owners. You don't belong here. So we're going to fight you too. It's just like a tug of war. You know who the real people are, but because you're there, your whole thing is to get it. So when the true people come, they won't be able to get it, but it's not going to work like that. So y'all, we must understand these things. It is very important that we understand. And once again, I realize and understand that for many of people that this is foreign and that it is not something that is normal because we've been taught to believe that Rome and the USA is Babylon and that the anti-Mashiach is going to come out of those places. So we're not looking in the right place. We're not looking in the right place. We're looking all over the place, but except in the right place. Now, this is what he stated in his sermon on Palestinian television on June the 8th, 2001. Mind you, that's just what, 20 years ago? 21 years ago? 21 years ago, 21. And, we might think, well, that's a long time. That ain't that long ago. 21 years ago, all right? Allah is willing for the unjust state of Yasharal to be erased. The unjust state, the United States, will be erased. the unjust state, Britain will be erased. Now, I read something to you all last week out of the Final Call, which is one of their newsletters, the Muslim newsletter. And you have to understand all the things that have been happening over here in America, from the storms and all of that. They believe that this is Allah whipping and bringing judgment on all the infidels. And they said there is so much more to come. So, y'all, we must understand and recognize they are already prepared to see many of us die.
Right.
But because we tend to believe, well, they talking about everybody. No, they're not talking about everybody. Now, they're going to deal with certain ones in a certain way, but you must understand the fight and the grievances, or the grievance, is against us, because we are the true inheritors of the land. And we have the identity of our Abba. They fight and they try to say Abraham was not Ibram, but he was. They fight daily and say he wasn't. And this is why they regard Ishmael over Isaac. Are y'all following me? That's important for us to understand. And so there's a fight that has been going on for generations, and it continues, and it will continue to go on. Now, listen at this. Recently, October of 2005 stated, as the Imam said, Israel, or Yashar, must be wiped off the map, referring to Iran's revolutionary leader, Ayatollah Khomeini. Ayatollah Khomeini. We see not our sins. There is no more any prophet, neither is there among us any that knoweth how long. Now, this is in the writings. This is Tehillim chapter 74, verse 9. But what I read to you before that is a statement from one of their imams, and from a person that's in a political, and not just political, was in a political and in a high position. Yo, so you have to understand, someone would ask the question, well, why we don't get this information? Political reasons. And I heard one person say, if I get a chance, I'm going to read it to you, some excerpts where it said, you got to understand, political reasons and because of what is most valuable. You're not going to throw away a relationship with people when you know these people are your source of what you get. So you would prefer, casualties over having, your needs met. Does that make sense? So people, you got to understand, you mean nothing to the government when it comes down to certain things. All right. Now, all the Ibram are perplexed as to how long this can continue. Surely it must end. What we're talking about is chapter 74 of Tehillim, which is Psalms, and we're talking about the condition and what was taking place, how the Arabs, the Muslims, were fighting and killing our people, and they were asking, how long do we have to endure this? How long do we have to suffer at the hands of our oppressors and our enemies? Now listen what verse 10 says. O Yahuah, how long shall the adversary reproach? Shall the enemy blaspheme thy name forever? That's a question. They continuously ask Yahuah how long these Muslims will blaspheme his Kadesh name. Now someone will say, well, how come that is not, how do we know that's not Christians? And how do we know that's not the European people? Well, you got to understand, let's look back. We're talking about, once again, this grievance and this fight between who? Two nation of peoples, Yasharal, are you hearing me? And the Arabs. And it's about identity and it's about inheritance. And this fight has been going on long before the Europeans even came into the picture. All right. Verse 11. Why withdrawest thou thy hand, even thy right hand? Take it out of your bosom and destroy them. Yahuwah's right hand signifies judgment to judge these nations. For Yahuah is my king of old, working salvation in the midst of the earth. That's verse 12. Yahuah is the one who can work our salvation, and we are not worthy to work out our own salvation. We accept what Yahuah provides through his mercy upon us by the blood of the Lamb. Indeed, we repent and await the great return of our Mashiach, which is so important that we not give up on, and that we not forfeit and we trade it in for something else, as so many people have done and continue to do, because of fear and because of a lack of understanding and information. All right. Now, verse 13, thou didst divide the sea by thy strength. Thou breakest the heads of the dragons in the waters. This is referring to Yahuah's division of the Red Sea during the Exodus from Mitzrayim. Thou breakest the heads of Leviathan in pieces and gavest him to be meat to the people inhabiting the wilderness. The dinosaur is such a huge beast, yet Yahuah gave this as meat to the people. Verse 15, thou didst cleave the fountain and the flood. Thou driedest up mighty rivers. The day is thine, the night also is thine. Thou hast prepared the light and the sun. Thou hast set all the borders of the earth. Thou hast made summer and winter. Remember this, that the enemy hath reproached, O Yahuah, and that the foolish people have blasphemed thy name. Have blasphemed thy name. Again, mention is made of Yahuah's powers, and his name is being blasphemed by these idolaters. Verse 19, O deliver not thy soul, or the soul of thy turtle dove, unto the multitude of the wicked. Forget not the congregation of thy poor people, or thy poor forever. Have respect unto the covenant, for the dark places of the earth are full of the habitations of cruelty. Once again, talking about Muslims. They make a plea to Yahuah of Yashua not to forget his covenant with them. Verse 21, oh, let not the oppressed return ashamed. Let the poor and needy praise thy name. Arise, O Yahuah, plead thine own cause. Remember how the foolish man reproacheth thee daily. Forget not the voice of thine enemies. The turmoil of those that rise up against thee increaseth continually. Continually. Once again, these are the things that we are seeing daily. There is a lack of respect for Abba Yahuah. There is a lack of respect for his people. It is. People will respect Muslims quicker and faster than they will our people. Now, I don't agree with everything that the brothers do on the street corner, but they bring it out and teaching about truth, and people will walk and disregard them, but they ain't gonna do a Muslim like that selling them meat pies or them bean pies. They give them more respect. Yes, they do. They give them more respect selling them bean pies. But it is Assalamu alaikum, my brother. How they say it? Yeah, they will do that, and they will go on. You don't see them. Have you ever seen any comedian making fun of them brothers on the street corners selling them bean pies? But they'll make fun and joke about those that are on the street corners doing what a lot of people don't have the nerve to do. With their posters talking about who Yahuah is and Yahush, and talking about who he is and so forth, with the knowledge they have and bringing forth those scriptures. Like I said, I don't agree with everything they do, but I do have to give them their kudos. But we will respect those Muslims faster than we will those brothers that are on the street corner, that are in their garbs. Are you hearing me? And we'll respect the man in the suit, not really understanding, unless you know things in the Quran, what their motive and their purpose is. And many of them don't even understand it. All right. Things seem to be getting worse by the Yom, so the Ibram people pleaded for Yahuah of Yashua to intervene and cast justice on their behalf, as it seems the world is slowly turning against them. The reason for this is simple. The Arab Muslims control a lot of oil, so they swing the balance of world opinion in their favor, and even in the European nations who rely heavily on Arab oil hold the Ibram in contempt and esteem the Muslims. The situation increases in sadness each Yom. Y'all, it's true. All you got to do is look at the money. Look at a dollar bill. Look at the money, period. All of that's on there. That is not European in nature.
No.
You know who owns the world and really who controls the wealth of the world? The Muslims. They control it. They control the black gold. They control the land, and they are taking more and they are doing more. You don't believe me? Look at when you go outside. You have 3 to 4 gas stations, and all of them are owned by Muslims. right in the same strip, and they don't fight over who gonna be on what corner. They right next door to each other. Y'all, because they understand who they are and they understand they control the wealth. Yeah, the Europeans may have something, but they don't have nothing compared to that. They are just in place. They are holder. You know, in math, when you're doing math and you have a placeholder, that's all they are. They are a placeholder. They're just holding that place until the right time for them to be moved out of the way, and they're going to be treated just like everybody else, like infidels. Are y'all hearing me? Yeah. That's important for us to understand. Now, clearly, these things are not going to remain as they are. Yahuah is going to uphold his covenant people, Yasharal, and cast judgment soon. When? We don't know. And somebody said, well, we really ain't going through nothing yet. Not yet. Not yet. Don't throw it off and say, well, they ain't bothering us. I know some friendly Muslim, and I know them, and they seem to be cool. For how long? For how long? Great question. It is quite clear for all to see that the Islamic nations are mentioned by their locations, since Islam did not exist prior to the 6th century CE. We must pay attention to the old biblical names and translate them into our modern countries. In order to know all these, or know that these are indeed all Islamic names, as the following table shows. Edom is southern Jordan. The Ishmaelite. Ishmael was the father of all the Arabs. Mitzrayim, Egypt, Moab, central Jordan, Hagranese, Egyptians, Gibel, Lebanon, Ammon, North Jordan, Amalek, Esau's descendants, who are Jordanians and Arabs, Philistia, the Gaza Strip, Assyria and Iraq, Tyre, Phoenicia, southern Lebanon, Ashur, Assyrians, children of Lot, plains of Jordan, Bereshit, chapter 13 and 11. Let's get that real quick. Genesis chapter 13, verse 11, please. All right, when you have it, said it is so.
And it is so.
All right, let's read it.
So Lot chose the entire Jordan Valley for himself. Then Lot journeyed eastward, and they separated from each other.
So, evidence, proof, and credible what? Witnesses. So we have evidence as well as proof that this is where they lived, and those are the people. Right? All right. Now, Zebah and Zamuna, both kings of Midianites, these were Arabs in Judges 8 and 5. Let's find Judges 8 and 5. All right, read that for me. 8 and 5.
8 and 5 reads. And he said unto the men of Succoth, give, I pray you, loaves of bread unto the people that follow me, for they be faint, and I am pursuing after Zebah and Zalmunna, kings of Midian.
Once again, we have what? We have our word to verify that these were kings of Midian. Y'all hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Excuse me. Oreb and Zeb, princes of Midians. Let's stay in that same book and let's look at verse 3. Judges chapter 8, or Shoftim chapter 8, and let's look at verse 3. You know, when we was in Christianity and we would skip over the genealogy. Be like, we don't need that. We just go blow through it. Why? Because we felt like it was irrelevant. Y'all were reading the writings, whether you're in Christianity or not. You need to know all of it, because that truly helps to help us to understand the fullness of the writings. Without that, we can't. But this is the way we were taught. We were taught not to read those things because they said it was irrelevant. It is very relevant. All right, let's look at 8 and 3. You gonna read? Yes. All right, come on, read loud.
Judges chapter 8. Then the Ephraimites said to him, "Why did you offend us this way by not calling us when you went to fight the Midianites?" And they argued with him fiercely. But he said to him, "What have I done now compared to you? Aren't Ephraim's leftovers better than..."
Wait, where are you reading from?
Judges
8 and 3. 8 and 3. It should start out, and power has given into your hands.
Yahuah handed you the Midianite officers, Oreb and Zeb. What have I been able to do compared to you?" When he said this, their anger against him passed. And it is so.
All right, and it is so. Now, once again, verse 3. Power has given into your hands the prince of Midian, Oreb, and Zeb. And what was I able to do in comparison of you? Then their anger was abated toward him when he had said that. Once again, proof, evidence, and credible witnesses. That's important. Very important. Very, very, very important. Excuse me. All right. Babylon, Iraq, and parts of Syria and Turkey. Nowhere do you hear anything about the US of A. Nowhere. And no matter what, people have been constantly trying to, people say some malicious stuff. Well, people that don't believe that America is Babylon just worship America. I don't worship nothing here in America. But let's give me the proof that this is Babylon. You cannot give me any proof because this is not Babylon.
Right.
Even the writings prove that this is not Babylon.
God.
Lud, Lydia, modern Eastern Turkey. It's important that we look at the locations and we recognize that that's the location, and not just grab a location and accept the location that was thrown to us without any evidence. Geographically, the USA does not, and characteristically, it does not fit. We may have a desert here, but we are not surrounded by deserts and water.
God.
All right. Now, if any scholar tries to tell you that Babylon is the USA, the EU, or the Vatican, then you have a sound biblical basis to show them that Yahuah does not see it that way. This is in the imagination and error of many scholars. Shaitan quite happily does his job, keeping many looking in the wrong place, which is exactly his plan of deception. Yahuah is not in the business of confusing people or concealing key end-time truths. Because how we know how to defend ourselves and what to do if we don't know? And many times people tell you, well, we don't know. That's a lie.
God.
The Yahweh is not going to leave us ignorant concerning the devices of Shaitan.
Right.
Neither is he going to have us in a position to where we don't know what to do.
God.
He's given us instructions and he's showing us where to look and how to be prepared. Are y'all hearing me?
God.
Yahuah did not send his only unique son, Yahush the Mashiach, to save us through a blood atonement on the tree, yet point us to Muhammad as his last prophet with the idea of good deeds earning our salvation. That's what they believe, good deeds. Now you have to understand, many times when they do practice jihad and they do the stuff they do, we always look at them as being extremists. They're not extremists, y'all. They're just doing what they do to be good Muslims. And they will tell you, in order to be a good Muslim, that's what they do. Now, some would say, but the people I know, they don't believe in that, right? Because they, instead of them believing in this, the Quran, they believe in, look at this, the watered down version. You see the difference of that?
Right. Right.
There's a major difference. What is this? This is the Holy Quran, the circle 7. The original book of the 7 seals, as revealed to the divinely prepared by the noble, prophet Drew Ali. Now, I know that many people might get angry, but y'all, you have to understand there is a difference. This right here is what they pulled out of it, just like Marcion did when it came down to the truth. Because you got to understand something. Europeans did not have a religion. They did not have what we have. And when they saw the writings, they didn't accept the writings because they felt like Yahuah was this mean tyrant and that he had no ahab, and they wanted a religion. Because you got to understand, Constantine is the one who legalized Christianity.
Right.
It was Marcion who turned around. Constantine legalized, but it was Marcion who gave him what he needed to legalize it. Have you noticed that every religion can pull out of the Bible?
Right. Right.
But you can't do that from the Torah, from the writings of Yahuah. It is strictly and specifically for a people, which is us. Because it is his instructions, divine instructions for us, his chosen people. But this is what they did. And so when you read the writings and you read the King James Version and other versions of these things, you're going to find out, when you get a true bona fide writings, or the bona fide writings that show us as a people, you're going to see that they directly oppose one another. Now, with that being said, do we accept the renewed covenant? Yes, we do. It is not the New Testament. It is the renewed covenant. With that being understood, you eat the meat and you spit out the bones. Because many of the things that were given unto us, they were manipulated. They were contaminated. But you got to understand that Yahuah is not going to leave us without a remedy. He's not going to leave us without truth, being able to find the truth. So even in that, you got to know what's truth versus what is not truth. But you got to understand, y'all, it's in the Quran. And those that follow the Quran understand there is no peace with those of their kinship, which is us.
Right.
They even fight against those that believe in the 7 circle. Yeah. In the 7 seals, or the 7, what's it called? The 7.
Circle 7.
Circle 7. I'm talking real fast. Circle 7 of this. So they fight against them because they understand, while they are trying to promote peace, they are promoting what they believe and what Muhammad said concerning infidels. Are y'all hearing me? Y'all, so you got to understand something. Now, I'm just asking a question. Would you believe this, which is the watered down, or believe this, which is the one that gives the evidence and the proof and the witnesses to what is to be believed if you are going to be a Muslim? Y'all hear me? I would respect to believe this one to be the valid one and not this one.
Right.
Because that means they had to modify and take a whole lot out. Are y'all hearing me? That's important for us to understand. They had to. And that's where they get their basis from, because you got to understand, they're both books based upon Muslim or Islam. But you have those that said, hey, we can't have this. This is not the way we do. But at the same time, if you're going to live this life, you're going to have to follow, or you're going to be considered an infidel too. So it's important. And then you got to remember, once again, the original book of the 7 seals, as revealed to and divinely prepared by the noble prophet Drew Ali. That's important to understand. He prepared that one for those that did not want to live or wanted to basically not deal with that. But y'all, the foundation is still this, the Quran. Now listen at this. I'm going to read this from the back, okay? Now, the Quran is a complete and original compilation of the final revelation from God to mankind through the last prophet. And even when we in Christianity, people say, ain't no more prophets. You start thinking, so what are y'all, Muslims, undercover Muslims? Peace be unto him, not to you, The Quran has essentially three qualities that make it universal. Firstly, it is a masterpiece of immense literary value. Secondly, though its message is a continuation of that contained in the earlier revelations made, listen at this, to Abraham, Moses, David, and Jesus, yet this message has a sense of fulfillment and originality that attracts toward it Jews, Christians, and Muslims alike. Finally, it has a wealth of information, both worldly wisdom and intellectual conceptions, which provide the code of life for mankind. Now, you have to understand that is what the projected goal is.
Right.
You have to understand they're not saying that's what it is. That is the projected goal, because if you don't do what is in here and accept Allah as your savior, then you are on a hit list to die. It's in here.
Right.
It's in there. I'm gonna show you some things. Like I say, I'm looking at my time. I'm gonna prove to you that that it is valid what I am saying. Okay. All right. Excuse me. Now, this is deception, y'all. Once again, Muhammad is not the last prophet, and this is truly of Shaitan, and it's important that we understand and be warned of the deception and not fall prey to it, because we're turning a deaf ear, because that don't sound right. That don't seem right. I ain't heard this before. This is the first time I'm hearing it. Well, before we came into truth, it was the first time we heard it too. Some of us, are you hearing me? Some of us had already, it had come to our door, but because of where we were, we rejected it. When I was still in my teens, I was really young, 15 or 16. Our next door neighbor was talking about, but they called themselves the Yahuistics. They believed in Yahweh, but that was just the name. But they believed that they were, and I believe they were Hebrews. And even when I was younger, we were going to a congregation that they were Hebrews when I was a little girl. And so not realizing that I had been exposed to it, even as a little girl, my auntie would go to church there, and she said they kept the Sabbath, but she was just going, hearing the word, but she did not accept that way of life. But we were exposed to it as little children. Then when I got into my teen years, our next door neighbor, he had gone through some things and wanted to change his life. And instead of going into church, he went and found the Hebrews, and they began to tell him about who he was. He was the one who told us, and y'all, I'm telling you, when we were Christians, we were crazy. He told us that Yahuah was not contained in the building. And he even told us that the Holy Ghost wasn't real. So y'all know we had a fit. We about spazzed out. But he was telling the truth, y'all. Is the Ruach, she is the Ruach HaKodesh. Not it, but she's the wisdom of Abba Yahuah. Are you hearing me? And when that was revealed to us, we about lost our minds. He said, yo, you're following behind a myth. You're falling behind that what is error. Y'all, we about lost our minds. We rebuked him and told him that was the devil. He was going to die and bust hell wide open. So some of us were exposed to it along the way, and then some of us were exposed one time and believed. And I believe when he spoke to me, I believe with all my heart through the Ruach, when he spoke to my heart and began to deal with me about being in Christianity, that this wasn't right, began to show me it was just basically adding more evidence to what was already presented to give a full case so that I could walk in it, not really recognizing or realizing even till now the times that I was exposed to the truth as a young girl. So what I'm telling you, it is important that we understand. Please understand and hear what I'm saying, yo. It is important that we read, hear what the Ruach is saying unto us, the congregation, and not throw it off and disregard it, because this is not the time for that. You know, it was a time when you look and say, well, you know, you may have a couple of time, a little bit of time. You don't have any time. This is now when you have to make a decision on what you're going to do, whom you're going to serve. It ain't none of them. Well, I'm gonna wait, because I need to get a little more evidence. You better take the evidence you have and research it and pray, like it's your last time, because it just might be. Right. Are y'all following me? All right. So I wanted to read that to you. And I want to stop right here because I want to read something else to you. And we started on this the week before last, and I didn't read anymore. But I want to read some more to you. And it comes from a book that I truly wish I could find. And I promise you, I wish I would have got it. When I bought the book, the World War III, excuse me, Unmasking the End Time Beast, there was another book that the author wrote. And it was called Peace or Beast, from the book Islam, Peace or Beast. Y'all, that book is the hardest book to find. When I found it and wanted to get it, they took it out of my cart. I was going to buy it from, what was it, eBay, I think it was? Amazon, I'm sorry, Amazon. And I put it in my cart. They took it out the cart and they said it was no longer available. That thing hurt my heart so bad. Then I went back again. They said the book was $1,700. I went back again and it was just backwards and forth. And I'm like, this makes no sense. No sense. And the reason why that book, y'all, is of the utmost importance is because you need to understand that what has been propagated is not truth. Islam is not a religion of peace.
That's right.
It is not. It is nowhere a religion of peace. That is what people have accepted it to be, but it is not a peace, period.
Right. God.
But I want to read some of this to you from the excerpt of the book, and it's in chapter 8, and it's called Beheading. Is this a new phenomenon or revival of true Islam? So I read some, and I want to go back and I want to pick up I want to pick up on page 1, and yeah, we're gonna start from here. All right, let's see. I'm gonna just start at the top, because that way it won't seem like just reading in the beginning. I'm gonna start at the first sentence in the first page, or the introduction. I'll say that the culture of beheadings is not something the Islamists have invented in the 21st century, as most people like to believe. The general opinion is that it is something the fringe element in Islam would carry out due to incorrect extremist outlook. That is, they are nice people otherwise. Again, this is far from the truth, as I will show later in this article. The problem is with the political correctness that is plaguing the West and stifling free speech to deal with the issue at hand. Unless we are honest, we cannot deal with the issue at all. We need to be sensitive and truthful about the issues we are facing. Our aim is not to isolate or separate Muslims into groups, but raise awareness of what is happening in our world and how best to deal with it. It's important that we do so. G.I. Joe, which is one of we love to watch it, especially a cartoon, but even the movie, where they said knowing is half the battle. So the more you know, the better equipped you can be, and the better prepared we can be as a people.
God.
Y'all know they still doing this stuff. Just because we don't catch it on the news don't mean it's not still happening.
God.
Now, we must ask, if Muslims are really peaceful, then how many Muslim protests have we seen condemning this behavior of beheadings? None. How many have you seen? Not none. You didn't even hear Farrakhan speak out against them, have you?
No.
You ain't going to either.
Right.
Now, how many Muslim protests have we seen condemning the violence plaguing many countries today? None. Y'all, we saw the movie, and I tell people that if you don't believe it, go watch it's based upon true events, but they did the movie like a documentary, and it is the attack on Darfur. It is a great movie to watch. It is very violent, and I would say when you go in to watch it, understand that you're going to see things that's going to challenge you. You're going to see these things, but I would encourage you to watch it so that you can see and get a feel of how they really feel about us as a people. But it is called Attack on Darfur. And once you watch it, then you tell me what you believe. This is based upon actual truth. Facts change, but truth remains the same. So I would encourage you, and there's some other ones out there. Now, the answer lies in the deafening silence of the Muslims. While the majority of Muslims remain silent, can we really hope to achieve any lasting peace? No, you cannot. You won't either. Now, if we look around ourselves, we can honestly name one serious conflict where the Islamists are not involved. If we take a look around ourselves, can we honestly name one serious conflict where the Islamists are not involved? No, you can't. And this is the thing when we talk about the media. The media does not always acknowledge Islamic presence or participation. They won't do it. They'll say a bombing. They'll say this happened. They'll say that happened. But they're not going to tell you unless there is something, ulterior motive, or where they feel like it's necessary to bring certain things out, which all of it should be brought out, especially when you're dealing with those type of issues. But they will not. All right. Just to go down the line with a few things. The Philippines, Muslims active and fighting against the government. Iraq, Muslims active in beheading, bombing, and killing. Saudi Arabia, Muslims active in bombings and terrorist acts. And these are the places that they live. So they know they are killing their own people. Afghanistan, Muslims active in bitter conflict with the U.S. coalition forces. Pakistan, Muslims active in the borders of Pakistan fighting with the government troops. Sudan, Muslims active against the Sudanese Christians, forceful conversions, and murder of innocent civilians, both Christians and non-Christians. Forceful conversion. You're going to either turn and be a part of this, or you're going to die. And the majority of people want to live, so they will do what? Become a Muslim. But see, we don't hear about those things. Indonesia, Muslim surgeons forcing the Christians to convert to or face death. Now, once again, as I said in the beginning, when you hear me talk about Christians, you got to understand they're talking about us. They ain't talking about no European people. What European Muslims do you see? You don't see none. They're talking about our people, fighting them, forcing them out of Roman Catholicism, and telling them, you might as well come on and be a Muslim. Because if you don't, you're going to die anyway. Are y'all hearing me? Algeria, Muslims insurgents fighting the government. Nigeria, Muslims fighting the Christians and destroying churches. Once again, you have to understand, this is our people. We were watching another segment or documentary, and it was talking about the dark side of the Sahara Desert. You see where the Roman Church, Roman Catholicism, has set up temples there. They set up churches right in certain areas. And they said there was a time where they wouldn't even go in there, that was sort of like, holy ground, for lack of a better word, because that's not nothing holy about it. But they use those as neutral grounds. Let's use that, neutral grounds, where they would not go in. But they say now you can run up in there, and if they want you, they're going to run right up in there and pull you out. So it's not a place basically where it's a safe zone. But they're destroying and tearing and burning up these things. Are y'all hearing me? That's important for us to understand. The jihad in China with the Uyghurs and the government in the Xinjiang province and the murder of Huns, and the world remains silent. They ain't saying nothing. Are y'all hearing me? This list is endless, and we can see that everywhere you look, the Islamists are active. Do you still want to paint a picture of Islam being peaceful? No. If you want to walk in the dark and bury your head in the sand and pretend it is not happening, that would still not make Islam peaceful.
Right.
And so it's important that we understand that does not make it peaceful because you don't believe it. Are y'all hearing me? All right. Now, this is what he says in the book. The purpose of this book is not to create Islamic phobia, but creating Islamic awareness so we all understand where we stand with this religion, which is intent on imposing its 7th century paradigm on the 21st century world. Now, that was in that time. We're in the millennium, right? So, yeah, so we're not, we don't use the 24th, but that was then. So now, y'all, if they were doing it then, what do you think they're doing it now? With more people joining, they've increased. All right. Now, first of all, let's read this. Of all, Islam as a religion is indeed stuck in the past, so to say. It just does not move on. It is the same old, same old. What does this mean? It wants to force people into the 7th century mindset, into the nomadic Arabic life. This means you cannot reinterpret the Quran according to modern methods to suit your whims and desires. No matter how peaceful a Muslim wants to become, he has to accept the Quran as a de facto standard in his life. They have to accept it. I've just showed you what they have versus the true standard and even code of conduct for their life versus what they want to walk by. Yo, that's just what they have, but they cannot use that much longer.
Right.
Because they're going to come calling for the true people that operate and accept Islam.
That's right.
All right. Now listen at this. The teachings of the beheadings are taken out of the pages of the Quran that all Muslims hold dear to their lives, also elaborated by the hadiths. These are the sayings and deeds of Muhammad. So in order to understand the Quran, you got to understand the hadiths, which are his sayings. You got to know the sayings. You got to know those. The Quran cannot be interpreted without the hadiths, and you cannot separate one from the other. They are intertwined and used in all aspects of Islamic jurisprudence. The hadiths are held in a very high regard by the dominant sects in Islam, excuse me, y'all. That is Sunni and Shiites. The hadiths are almost compared as divine as the Quran and must be adhered to in order to live out a life as a good Muslim.
Right.
Yo, that's just the bottom line. You cannot change that. And you got a lot of our people that accept it because they've not been introduced to the truth. And then you have some that accept it because they feel like the only way to survive, we got to join forces with them.
Right.
And that's wrong right there.
God.
Because you're not going to be spared. And if you do, you're going to be paying. And if you can't pay, you're going to die. The jizya tax.
Right.
And then furthermore, if they considered you a kafir, you don't have a chance anyway.
Con.
You don't have a chance anyway. Are y'all hearing me?
Con.
All right. Now, anything the Muslims do must be seen through the Islamic lenses, which most people rarely do today. They incorrectly go on labeling this as extremist behavior or terrorist activity. Let me categorically state for the record, this is not terrorist activity, and these Muslims are being labeled with a false label of terrorists and extremists when they are all trying to do is follow their religion to the letter.
Con.
To the letter. They ain't being extremists. They're just doing
Right.
what they believe they need to do to be sanctioned as good Muslims. All right. Now, have you ever wondered why the Muslims get so incensed when you label them as terrorists? This is because they are trying to be good Muslims, not terrorists or extremists. What the West defines as terrorism, Islam sees as good Muslim behavior. Also, many people incorrectly say Wahhabism is a sect of Islam that has extremist views. Again, this is not true and completely a false view. Muhammad ibn Abd al-Wahhab was from the 18th century, simply should be considered a Puritan for Islam, who asked people to go back to the truth of Muhammad and his teachings in Islam. It is akin to the Reformation in Christianity to go back to the truth of the Bible. History concludes neither party did. Well, Christianity can't go back because Christianity has the only basis Christianity has is based off of falsehood.
Con.
Because Christianity actually was created off of the Torah, modified because Marcion modified these things because they wanted a religion and they wanted a way to control people, and this is the way they did it.
Right.
So this is why when we talk to people in the truth and we are walking in truth and we tell them, y'all, Christianity is not what you think.
Right.
Go research it. And I'm talking about research it from eyes and from people, from the eyes of people that have been open and from the heart of those that truly have been reformed and brought out of this way of life.
That's right.
And stop saying, well, Christianity did this for me. Christianity ain't done nothing for you.
God.
Well, I got my prayers answered. From who? Give me a name. You just said God, and we know Jesus. He is the Marcion. What's that man name? Not Marcion. Caesar Borgia is a figurehead.
Huh?
And Jesus is a name they put to it, and it really wasn't Jesus. It was Iosis, wasn't it? That's how you say it, Iosis?
Jesus.
Iosus or Iusus. Iosus?
Jesus.
Jesus. That was the name because they didn't have a J. Now listen at this, y'all. They used that scheme and platform to bring people under their control. I know this is hard and it may be a strong meat and strong drink for so many people, but y'all, it is the truth and it is needed.
God.
And this is what they did. And in the process of doing that, they said, hey, we could take this same system and we could use it to make sure our slaves maintain their walk with us, because we will tell them these are the words of God and we are his prophets or his people.
That's right.
They had no religion, y'all. They had nothing. We were the ones with the code of conduct. We were the ones given the pure, unadulterated, untampered with before they got it and messed with it. Word and instructions of Abba Yahuah that was given specifically for our people.
God.
And they caught wind of it. And Marcion took it and said, hey, we can build a religion. And you know what Constantine said? We sure can. And we're going to legalize this religion and we're going to make it so.
Right.
Right.
Are y'all following me?
God.
That's important for us to understand. Truly it is. And because you got all these sects of Christianity or in Christianity, all of these different divisions, Baptists, Seventh-day Adventists, everybody pulled from what they wanted to create a religion or a system. Southern Baptists, Seventh-day Adventists. Then you had the Holiness, Anabaptist, Presbyterian. Then you had once again the what was somebody non-denominational, which you pull from every denomination.
Right.
Right.
So you got non-denominational, then you got denominational, which you just basically all of it's the same thing, and all is the children or the bastard children of Roman Catholicism, which actually is not a bastard child, is a child. Christianity is a bastard child from truth. Because it was never fathered by the Abba.
God.
This is something that was brought forth, and it was not brought forth by the Abba. So Christianity is the bastard child. And so that's important for us to understand, truly important for us to understand that this way, y'all, was brought forth. But the truth of it is that we hold the keys to the truth.
God.
There is only one way. And this is why when people get into Christianity, because of over the generations of it constantly changing, and they're adding and they're adding and they're taking away to ensure that our people will constantly stay brainwashed. This is what they've done and will continue to do until we rise up and say enough is enough, and do like I did and do like some of the rest of those walking in truth did. Say, no, we're not going to accept this. There has to be more to this walk than this. Don't come throwing me some crumbs and telling me this is the way. And we're supposed to do it like this. Y'all, life is more than a Rolls Royce. Life is more than people believe, because what you're going to do when you can't drive, what you're going to do when there is no money. Where's your hope then? Where's your hope? And they use this system to create a religion. They didn't want to follow in the truth. This is why Tertullian was killed, because he knew the truth. He knew the truth. And according to some theologians, he accepted the truth. And that's why they killed him. Because he didn't want to walk in their way. He didn't want to live in a modified way of life that was taken from the Torah and basically just cultivated to fit their way. We was watching a movie last night, y'all, and to show you how people are just so crazy. They were talking about the end of the. It was what in the end, wasn't it?
I think end of days, I think it was.
And not end of days, at the end, something like 2 words at the end. It was kind of like at the end, basically at the end of the world. And basically it was a movie about European preppers. Now, the thing that really got me about it, y'all, is they believe in their religion. And you got to understand, this is why when it's all said and done, you will never really see any European folk in a black, quote unquote, church. Is because you got to understand the mindset is you just basically stole what we had. We had the church first. Now you are supposed to be under us. We're never supposed to be under you. That's important for us to understand. That's the thing that people don't really recognize. You will never see. And if you do, they're in there only to try to force their opinion on that black pastor to make them believe that you are not doing right. And this is the right way to do it, which in all honesty, they are telling the truth. Because you have to understand, Christianity was never created to help us to succeed in anything.
Right.
It was to keep us in bondage and to keep us docile and to keep us dumb on who we really are.
God.
And it did work for a minute until truth came in and broke the chains and brought liberty to many of us. Now we got to maintain that liberation and walk in it.
God.
Now, I want to finish reading this to you. If Christians follow Jesus, the Mashiach or the Messiah, and believe correctly, as the Bible states that he is divine or divine God, who took the form of a man to die on the execution stake, raised after 3 days from the grave. Now, once again, y'all, this is where when I get information, I always try to bring it out. This is where you see when people have an issue and they are not fully persuaded that his name is not Jesus. Because then they will go backwards and forth with, Yahuah, the Mashiach, and Jesus. Understand something. Jesus is not his name.
God. Right.
He has a name. And his name coincides from the Abba.
God.
So it's important that we understand that. Very important that we understand that. Now, the Bible also teaches, and it's true, the Bible. Everything I'm telling you, it is in the Bible. It is how the interpretation of the Bible you get and how you interpret it and how you accept the interpretation. One thing about the Hebrew writings and the truth, which we know that there are some things, because it was destroyed, we will never have the original. But we get close enough to having the original, and through prayer and through seeking the Abba, I believe with all my heart, he gives us the divine revelation of it.
God.
But what they are telling you from the right, it is the truth. This is what the Bible says. And this is where we as a people have to understand. Are we going to take the Bible that was rewritten at face value, or are we going to challenge it with the truth that we receive and put it and compare it and say, wait, that may be what they interpret it to be, but what does it really say in the original context?
God.
So that is so important for us to understand. Now, listen what it says. The Bible also teaches that he is the only way to go to heaven. We understand talking about Yahuah, but understanding also who's going to heaven and for how long. You understand what I'm saying?
God.
All right. Now, let's look at this. Would you then label them as extremists, intolerant, or fanatics? Would you say that they have hijacked Christian faith? He said, I know some would consider this as an extremist view. Some would even go far as to say this is radical Christianity, when the effect that is what Jesus of Nazareth taught, that he is only the way to heaven, not radical or fanatic in any way. Now, understand something. We understand when syncretism is in there. We understand when things are put in there to make us believe, understand that we are going to live in heaven, or they are going to live in heaven as Christians.
God.
They don't follow anything concerning the truth, but they're going to go to heaven and they're going to stay there. Now, once again, the writings never say that we are going to heaven to stay there, to live there. It does not say that.
That's right.
But that's their interpretation of it. Are you hearing me?
God.
Just as they say that Abba Yahuah is a loving, compassionate power, and he is to his people. Yes, he is to his people. But isn't it amazing that in that interpretation, he is a loving and he is a compassionate power to everybody else but to us? It's true. All right, now let's listen at this. He really sent them to bring back the lost sheep from the 10 tribes, which became many Gentile nations. Now, it's important that we understand when Yahush came, that was his job, to go to the prostituting sheep of Yasharal. According to Yahuah 15 and 25, I believe it is, or 25 and 15. I'll make sure I don't want to switch that up. But Yahuah, where he said, I've come but only for the who? Prostituting sheep of Yasharal.
Huh.
All right, let me check myself. I believe it is 15 and 25. 24, I'm sorry. And he answering said, I was not sent except to the lost sheep of the house of Yasharal. That's 24, 15 and 24. Yahuah 15, 24. Now, if he was only sent to the lost sheep of Yasharal, which are those of us that didn't even recognize we were lost until it was brought to our attention. But our ancestors knew they were lost because they knew they had digressed and walked away from his truth. But this is why Yahush was sent, not for the world, but for Yasharal. And that's important for us to understand. Now, Yahuah in chapter 14, verse 6, Yahush said to him, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. Now, with that being said, if Yahush has made this proclamation, declaration, and it is through him, it is just like having access to, to a business. Unless you have the right name or the right code, you do not get access. And this is another thing that is important. Name does matter.
God.
It does count. Go to somebody's house of notoriety asking for the wrong person. They're going to tell you to get away from it because you don't even know who you're looking for.
Right.
You're not going to go to anybody's house of notoriety and anybody, period, saying, well, I'm looking for Joe. Well, Joe don't live here, but this is the address they gave me. Well, he don't live here.
Right.
So you're denied access. You're denied the privileges of going into that home because you don't have the right name.
Right.
And so Yahush said, I am the way. He's I'm the way. You know, I'm the only way, the truth, and the life. And no one comes to the Abba except through me. We cannot get to the Abba except through Yahush. Now, this, by the way, means to obey Torah through the Mashiach, who is the living Torah and is not some secluded pathway as Joshua always had him, but did not see him as the man Yahush until 2,000 years ago when he died and rose again to victory to fulfill many prophecies. Now, I read that, but the 2,000 years, I will rebuttal that because I believe that the earth is older than that.
God.
Are y'all following me?
God.
But I want you to get the gist of what I'm saying. It is through the Torah that we obey.
God.
And we have access because Yahush is the Torah made flesh. And it is through his life living that we know how to live.
God.
And we take that example and we live by it.
God.
Are y'all hearing me?
God.
All right, now let's listen at this. The same way the camp that cannot understand Islam also wants to label the Muslims, which carry out the teachings of the Quran and Hadiths, as extremists and terrorists. The bottom line is this: the people who hold this view of peaceful Islam have no idea of what Islam is or its teachings are. They have their own preconceived notion of what Islam should be or should not be, and they refuse to believe that Islam is not peaceful from its inception. The media machine, that is BBC, Channel 4, CNN, also exposed the view of Islam as peaceful and even try to tell us that scholars agree that Islam does not preach violence. I would like to know who these scholars are because they are never named, and why are these scholars not organizing mass protests against the extremist element in Islam? Because they're not going to.
Right.
They're not going to. And you have to understand the writings tell us how can two walk together except there's an agreement.
God.
There's no agreement. And once again, it's important that we understand that Islam is not a religion of peace. The Quran even states it is not a religion of peace.
God.
The truth is that these are the views of those few who try to tone down Islam. But when you pick up the Quran, then their deception is clearly evident for selling do-it-yourself Islam to the West. If you want to see true Islam, then my advice is to go and live in an Islamic country. And then you will see how they treat you. And that is the truth. It's very important. Now, it's important that we understand. Now, let's look at this. We understand that Yahuwah the Mashiach thus elaborated the need to repent and gave 2 golden rules of conduct. Ahab Yahuwah your power with all your heart, soul, and mind. The second, ahab your neighbors as yourself. Ahab all mankind, treating them as we would like to be treated, and recognizing that we are all created in the image of Yahuwah. Now, with that being said, it's important that you understand who your real neighbor is. Your neighbor is Yahshua, not the racist person that lives beside you. That is not your neighbor.
God.
And so many times there is also conflict when it comes to this, because we're always loving everybody else, but never our own. Well, I got to walk in peace with my neighbor, and your neighbor is an an Aryan? He's a skinhead. He's a part of the KKK, Ku Klux Klansman. He's this or she's that. And according to their interpretation, you are supposed to. But if they're reading the same Bible you are, why they don't have to uphold that same code of conduct?
Right.
Because you have to understand that it was never meant for them for that reason. It was meant for you and for myself for that reason. To always keep us in a position that we will never fight back and always love them when they hate us to our guts.
Right.
Now, someone would think, well, you're teaching hate. No, I'm not. I'm teaching you the truth.
God.
I'm teaching you the truth. For me to teach hate would mean that I would have to get out there and say some things, and I can't because I'm not in a position to do so.
God.
Are you hearing me?
God.
I'm not talking about economically. I'm talking about in the position. I'm not in a position to teach hate, but I can teach about liberating you and helping you to understand everybody is not your neighbor.
That's true.
They are not your neighbors. And so once again, isn't it amazing that they can read the same Bible you read and it says love your neighbor, but yet they can turn around and deface and destroy your property and destroy your stuff and write nigger all on your stuff and tell you you're this and tell you you're that,
Right.
and go straight to church the next day. So y'all understand, we've got to understand who our true neighbors are and who the enemy is. Now, with that, I want to read this, and once I read this, then we're going to move forward. In the Islamic world, we also have 2 interesting concepts: that Allah, the Islamic deity, is the supreme being, and Muhammad is his last and final prophet and supreme authority on earth. Anything that Muhammad says goes, and you cannot question that authority. This is why when we read Islamic history, we see that no one ever questioned Muhammad's authority. And if anyone dared to challenge his authority, then they were swiftly dealt with permanently and ended up 6 feet under, or 6 feet down under. The jihad on infidels. It is a widely held belief that in Islam, it is incumbent on all Muslims to go for jihad for Allah and establish the caliphate. That is the Islamic State. Jihad is the greatest thing a Muslim can do to outwardly convert others to Islam by preaching first. And if they do not listen, then the Muslim to use all means possible. That is setting up mosques, madrasas, Islamic schools, and centers of worship. And lastly, force, that is convert or kill. Do you see that the Muslims in Europe are already actively setting up the mosque and Islamic centers? Forces will follow later, given the right circumstances. Just take a look at Mitzrayim, Indonesia, Lebanon, Nigeria, etc. Are we seeing an Islamic utopia in these countries? Not likely. According to Imam, Imam, Al-Qastam or Shafi, or the Shaif, Shaafi. Yeah, the Shafi, the Ayman al-Mawad, Ayman al-Tazif, Hanif, and Ayman Hanif, Imam. Schools are thought the condition to fight the infidels is to give victory to Islam as an aim, and the intention must be to make Allah's Islamic deity named the highest. The Muslims' aim is to make Allah's faith the highest, and the struggle is real, and it begins with fighting, and fighting has to be begun by Muslims as a precondition after offering someone Islam, and their non-acceptance can start this off. Now, we're going to look at this, and like I said, and then I'm going to close because I want to give you from there, from the Quran. All right, let us look at the first case of how Muhammad dealt with people living in Saudi Arabia. Surah 47:4. Therefore, when you meet the unbelievers in fight, smite at their necks, that is, behead them. At length, when you have thoroughly subdued them, humiliate them. Bind them a bond firmly on them. Thereafter is the time for either generosity or ransom can be released for a sum of money until the war weighs down or lays down its burdens. Thus are ye commanded. But if it had been Allah's will, he could certainly have exacted retribution from them himself. But he lets you fight in order to test you, some with others, but those who are slain in the way of Allah, he will never let their deeds be lost. The Quran is clear that this is to instill fear in the people's heart who are unbelievers, non-Muslims. Do y'all understand? That's important for us to understand. Once again, I understand that many times this is hard for people to digest because it is something that we many times have not been introduced to. Some may have, but some not. We always, at one point in time in our lives, looked at the Islam nation as underdogs. We did, because there was a time where, oh, the Islam, Islamic nation, they're struggling. Those people are pitiful. Yo, let me tell you something. They're the richest people in the world.
Right.
And they have power. These people are not struggling. These people know what they're going to do and what they want to do and how they're going to do it.
Right.
Oh, y'all hear me? Okay. Surah 8:12-13. Remember thy Lord inspired the angels with the message, I am with you. Give firmness to the believers, Muslims. I will instill terror in the hearts of the unbelievers, all non-Muslims. Smite ye above their necks. All right. Let's see. All right. Let me get to my other part, y'all. Okay. Hold on. I got a little gap in here. Smite the above their necks. And listen at this. For a camel load of food that would cause us great disgrace, but we will mortgage our arms to you. All right. Hold on. Yeah, that's it. That's it. I got it. Okay. Muslim and his companion, or Muslim and his companion, promised Cab that Muslim would return to him. He came to Ka'ab at night alone with Ka'ab's foster brother, Abnal. Ka'ab invited them to come into his fort, and then he went down to them. His wife asked him, where are you going at this time? Ka'ab, I guess that's how you would say K-A-B, replied, none but Muslim and my foster brother, Abu, have come. His wife said, I hear a voice as if blood is dripping from him. Ka'ab said, they are none of my brother, Muslim, and my foster brother, Abu Nal. A generous man should respond to a call at night, even if invited to be killed. Y'all see, this is some stuff you look at and people think, okay, no, this is not something I want to be a part of. Are y'all hearing me? And this comes out of, okay, let me see. Okay, I'm trying to see. I want to make sure that went with that. I have to make it smaller. All right, because that was Surah 8, 12 and 13. Now this thing might be all stupid. Excuse me, y'all. Okay, let me go back. All right, let me finish reading this, y'all. I'm sorry. That was something else. I had to make it smaller. All right, remember thy Lord inspired the angels with the messenger. I am with you. Give firmness to the believer, Muslim, and I will instill terror into the hearts of the unbeliever, all non-believers. Smite ye above their necks, cut off their heads, and smite all their fingertips off them. This because they contended against Allah and his messenger, Muhammad. If any contend against Allah and his messenger, Allah is strict in punishment, no mercy. Again, mention is made here by the Quran that this is ordained by Allah himself to cut off people's heads, to cut people's heads off and fingers. This is not allegory, but the real deal of Islam that most people are in denial of. These surahs are in force today and have not been abrogated. They have not been changed. We are told by the ignorant masses not to judge Islam based on radical Muslims' actions. So then what are we to judge Islam on? In other words, when you see the bombings and you see those things, and there was one more thing that I want to read that we found earlier to substantiate what I am saying. Now, we are told once again by the masses not to believe this. Y'all, this is what they do because they've been told to do it. Mm-hmm. There is only one answer. Look at Muhammad and his actions, who is the founder of Islam. Would you not judge Christians by their actions? So once again, we understand that. But beheading. All right, now I'm going to stop right here because this goes into a story, the slaughtering of the Ibram people by beheading. We're going to look at that. But I want to read this to you. And this is something that was brought forth recently, I think in 2001. All right. In June 2001, the PA television broadcast Sheikh Ibrahim Mahdi's sermon, blessing whoever has put a belt of explosives on his body or on his sons and plunged into the midst of the Ibrahim. He blessing people that are bombing, running with bombs strapped on their bodies and blowing places up. Mm-hmm. Yes, it's the truth. Yo, this is, you look it up. In June 2001, the PA television broadcasted Sheikh Ibrahim Mahdi's sermon, blessing to those that will strap a bomb around themselves and run into a place where Hebrews are. Yo, so this is not something that's being made up, and it's public information. It's public information. Where's the other one? Is it on this one too? Okay, one more, and then we're going to pray and close. Once again, I understand that this can be difficult for many times, and then many people be like, well, I ain't worried about it. I'm not worried about it either, but it's better to know than to be second guessing some things. And sometimes people tend to become haughty and arrogant and feel like, that ain't gonna never come to my door. If you're a Hebrew, it just might come to your door. The inheritance belongs to you, then you already, whether you want to accept it or not, you already have a bullseye, a target on your back. Right. Now, how we stay safe is how the Abba shows us how to stay safe. Yeah, the one about the first one that showed me where he was talking about killing them with a curse. All right. Now this is one also by, what was this man's name?
That was by somebody else said it too.
Yeah, let me this one this is by the same person, Sheikh Ibrahim. And he did this one June 8th, 2001. 2001, that's 21 years ago, right? Okay. All right. Someone said, but that's a long time ago. No, that ain't that long ago. Now, listen what he said. All weapons, must be aimed at the Ibrahim, at the enemies of Allah. the cursed nation in the Quran, whom the Quran describes as monkeys and pigs. We will blow them up in Hadera. We will blow them up in Tel Aviv and in Netanya. We bless all those who educate their children to jihad and to martyrdom. Now, please tell me, this was in 2001. This was stated, y'all, this is an article, public. How do we sit and not acknowledge, y'all, that this is something that we as a people need to know about? Because you better understand, we are public enemy number one. I want that to ring in your heart and your mind, not to scare us, but to make us aware. Now, I know there'll be people that will rebuttal it, and they will come with their historical, backgrounds and views saying, well, that's wrong and we can't do that. Well, you do what you do. But I know there is evidence, proof, and credible witnesses. And they are our enemy because they are family. You got Ishmael's descendants along with Esau and along with Isaac and Yaakov. Are y'all hearing me? Now, that's where the hatred stems from. So I leave those words of encouragement with you. And I tell you once again, do your research. Keep your head up keep your head up and keep your shoulders square and keep your heart and your mind diligently in the Torah, because we can't go wrong when we walk in the multi-dimensional system that he's given unto us. Y'all, the Torah is our only way. I don't want to use the word to escape, but to be protected from these things. And if we find ourselves facing these things, I am fully persuaded that he will deliver us, y'all. I am. And it is important that we walk in that mindset and in that heart set, because there is no other way. You cannot be friends with the enemy and be friends with Abba Yahuah. It does not work. It doesn't work. And so it is important that we as the children of Yahshua come together, build together, find ways to be sustained together while we are yet here waiting on our exodus. Until that time comes, we are all that we have, each other. That's all we have is each other. And it is important that we believe that to the point that we say, y'all, we do need to come together. Now, I'm not saying until the time comes that everybody just come and get in one place, because until Abba Yahuah is ready for that, that could be disastrous. Somebody said, you don't believe? No, I believe full-heartedly we could do it. But until the Abba puts us all with one mind and one accord, it would be, I believe, disastrous. I do. And the reason I say that is because until Abba Yahuah settles and allows us to know who is going to be that one leader, which we know is going to be Yahush, you'd have a whole lot of people trying to be the leader. Are y'all hearing me? You would have a lot of people. Am I saying that we can't come together? Absolutely not. I believe that we can come together and that we can live, but I'm talking about all of us in one place. Until Abba Yahuah sanctions that one belief in us and gives us all that one way, we'll be going in different directions. That's why we have to pray for us all to have one mind, one heart, and be of one accord. But I am praying that we come together as a people, learn one another, get to know one another, get to ahab one another as mishpachah, and then begin to sort out the things that need to be sorted out, get rid of the things that are not needed. Because until that time comes, we will constantly still be bickering and fussing over things that are really irrelevant. So it is a time of prayer, and it is a time of consecrating ourselves to the things that we know are important, and that is his instructions and guidance for our lives. Once again, stay encouraged, watch what's going on. Stay up on the news, stay up on the things that are going on in different places, and stay encouraged and be encouraged, and encourage somebody else to continue keeping on in the truth. If you don't have land, get up with someone, court them, to find out if that's the place that you should be, and that they'll accept you, and that you ought to come together, because all chemistry does not bond.
Right.
All relationships and all, everybody don't, can't get along.
Absolutely.
And that's just the truth. And I believe that we can, to a degree, but there are times that people's, characters, personalities, and chemistry sometimes kind of doesn't gel. You got 12 tribes, and all the tribes trying to come together. We need to know what tribe we belong with, and we get with that and do. But it's important that we understand, because there is even feuding among us,
Right.
Yashar and Yehuda. So it's important that we understand that Abba Yahuah has to sanction shalom in us and bring us to that place to where we can do what we need to do. But until that time comes, find a safe haven. Find a place that you can get and build with the community, and let them build you. Don't be out here by yourself. That is not a safe place to be out by yourself. Build, invest. And I want to say this. We know this is tax time, and my time is about up. We know this is tax time. Don't take your taxes and spend them foolishly. Invest in wealth. Invest in something that you can turn around and look at and say, this is mine. And if need be, I can live here. I can build on it. People buying houses in the city, don't do that. Because eventually the city is not going to be a friendly place for anybody. Buy you some land. Get yourself as far away from the city as you possibly can. Learn how to be sustain yourself. Learn how to be autonomous. Learn how not to depend on anything. Even stores are going to become more and more ridiculous when it comes to buying things. Now when you go in the store, you spend $100, you might have seriously 8 to 10, maybe if they have stuff on sale, 10 to 15 bags or things in your buggy. Maybe. Because of how expensive stuff is. It is not just the stuff is getting expensive just because. It is because the money has lost its value. $1 is not 4 quarters anymore. $1 is 5 quarters. It's 5 quarters. Somebody say 5 quarters. Yeah, because in order to buy something worth $1, you got to spend 25 cents more.
Right.
So it's 5 quarters. So in order to buy 4 things, you got to spend $5 just to get 4 things. Y'all, we are seeing these times because they are upon us. They're not coming. They're already here. Learn to grow your food. If you're growing your food, learn how to take care of your food and maintain your food. If you're like us in transition, keep fighting until you are able to be where you need and want to be. Don't stop and don't become discouraged and accept what becomes the norm. Keep pushing until that door is open. Pray for a breakthrough so you can push through. Pray for a breakthrough so you can push through. This is the time that we're in. So my mishpachah, please stay encouraged. Keep your head up, keep your shoulders squared, and keep your heart and your feet and your mind in the Torah, because we can't go wrong when we keep the Torah at the center of our lives. I am Aliyah Yasharal, and I am the Mora of Messengers of Yahuah's Kingdom, Hebraic Belief Congregation located in South Carolina. I want you to remember, here at Messengers of Yahuah's Kingdom, Hebraic Belief Congregation, this is the place where the Torah does the body excellent. Until next time, may Abba Yahuah Baruch Atah and keep you in his shalom until we meet again. Also, I want you to remember, the push, the move, and the fight is on. Work smarter, not harder. Also, you've been touched by Champion TV, a place where the champions reside. And it is so. And it is so. And it is so.